Welcome everybody to our statistics colloquium today, and I'm most honored to introduce Professor Wayne Winston, who is Professor Emeritus of Decision and Information Systems at Indiana University on the Bloomington campus, and he is also been a visiting professor at the Bauer School of Business at the University of Houston, teaching decision and information sciences. He has won over 40 teaching awards, 40 teaching awards, including the top MBA teaching award 6 times at Kelley School of Business, which means he was the most outstanding MBA professor at Indiana's Kelley School of Business. He's authored 25 research articles on spreadsheet modeling coursework for the Harvard Business School Publishing. Excel with Wayne is a course built from 40 years of teaching experience at the university, 15 years of writing the Excel textbooks for Microsoft, and 10 years of designing the Excel courses for Harvard. He's taught classes or consulted for many organizations, including Cisco, Cummins Engine, Eli Lilly, Pfizer, Verizon, Microsoft, Cisco, Department of Defense, including the Navy, Army, Ford Motor Company, 3M, Deloitte, and GM. But what's also most important is he is a 2-time Jeopardy champion.
75 behind Ken Jennings. 1992. You can find a video of me what I looked like 29 years ago.
Well, he's in super shape today because of his hobbies, which include swimming, near competition swimming. He won, earlier he won many awards.
Not many, but
many awards. Swimming is really, but his research interests include spreadsheet models, all aspects of applied probability, such as stochastic processes, game theory, probabilistic dynamic programming, quality control math, and sports. He has a master's degree in MIT and a PhD in OR from Yale University. And he understated the number of books he wrote. He says he's written over a dozen. I counted 16. They range from operations research, managerial statistics, simulation modeling, financial models, Microsoft Excel, and of course what he's most known for is the Mathematics book, which sort of put analytics on the map in the sports world, and plus a bunch of other books which are just amazing. He accomplishes what he does in his spare time besides swimming and walking, as he does like to watch television series. And he actually accomplishes something when he finishes a series. Most of us think we've accomplished something when we finish a TV series, but he actually does because he uses those examples in his books. And so he does it very well. I've taught from his books for 12 semesters in our 385 class, and I'm just so happy to have him here with us.
oh, thanks, John.
Welcome, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And so hopefully most of you have this file, New Rice, because I screwed up the first file. Let me see if I can make it bigger here. So there's my phone number and email. If you have questions, call me or send me an email. I'll be glad to talk to you. You guys can hear me in the back? Okay. So we don't have that much time, so I'll try and go through as much of this stuff as possible. But what I'm trying to show you is a lot of the statistical capabilities of Excel. Now, how many people have Office 365? Okay. Because a lot of stuff I'm going to be doing is just on Office 365. You may not be able to follow along. And Macintoshes are a bit different. How many people have Macintoshes? Okay, they're the bane of our existence. Teaching Windows, they really are. Okay, but I'll do my best here. So let's go to the worksheet descriptive. So when we first teach people statistics, we want to know how to describe data. So the main tool for this, now on Windows, you'll be able to follow along with me. But on the Macintosh, I think you have to do Tools, Excel add-ins, and then you should be able to follow along with me to add the analysis tool pack. So the analysis tool pack is where most of Excel statistics resides. Now, if I go to the data tab, now the zoom thing, boy, I've not be able, I have to, okay, data tab. You can see on my screen there's something called data analysis. So how do you get that in Windows if you don't have it? Now it's telling me to join with computer audio. Do I have to hit that?
Sure. Thank you.
Is this okay? I don't know if I'm, okay, all right, thanks. Thanks a lot. Okay, I had no clue what to do there. I've never done like a live, I've done Zoom, but not feeding into something. So in this worksheet, we have monthly returns on Microsoft, General Electric, Intel, GM, and Cisco. So we might want to analyze this data with typical descriptive statistics. So now this, I've got to move away because it's blocking. You can't see this, but it's blocking. I'm trying to find a good place to put this that won't mess me up. Yeah, okay, now it's okay. So if we go data now, so if we added that data analysis add-in, we go data analysis, and then this is where most of Excel's statistical capabilities reside. So if I would click on descriptive statistics, click OK, then basically you can pick your data, and let's suppose I just want to do GM and Cisco. So stop me with any questions, but I would select these two columns, including the heading, and then do Control Shift down arrow. And that 5 and 25 you don't have. I added that, so don't worry. But the data is grouped by columns, labels in the first row, because you want to have labels or else you don't know what you're talking about. Then if I click on output range, we already have that data here. But if I would click right where this GM thing is here, and I would say summary statistics, you'll get descriptive statistics. It'll overwrite existing data, I don't care. But then basically I don't have to explain to statistics people what these things mean, but basically this gives you your basic descriptive statistics. Now, the one problem with this is if you add new data or change the data, this doesn't change, you have to run it again. But so you can use statistical functions. So let me quickly, right over here, these statistical functions. So if you want a mean, you do average. And so you would select a range in Excel, you would do Control Shift down arrow. Now it's including the new one at the bottom, which I shouldn't have done there because let me delete this row in the bottom I was adding when I messed around this morning. You don't have that row. So let me just get rid of this here because I can tell we're already, okay. So you can see that 6% there matches there. If you want to see, for those of you who teach, you should always use formula text because with formula text, you can show a formula. So I can see that formula. Now, if I want the standard, the median, there's a median function. Now I name that range Cisco. You could just type CSCO. I don't have time to talk about naming ranges, but then it knows I had picked that column for Cisco. Now this is stupid Excel. Why does it say a date? Because there's lots of dates in the spreadsheet, so it thinks it's a date. So if you do Control-1, you can change the format to a number format. Oops, now I don't want that. Go away. I don't want to leave the meeting. Okay, there we go. Number. Now I don't know why that would be. Maybe I shared the screen. So now, well, now the toolbar for Zoom disappeared. Oh, I'll get it back. So it means start the share screen is what we need, right? How get rid of this? How's that? No. I'm trying to this thing here.
Yeah.
Now are we okay? Now how do I get rid of it? You're not seeing leave meeting, but I got to put that out of the way. All right. So then mode, there's a mode function. You'd say mode. You could type CSCO because I named that column. Don't have time to go through that. Okay. So no, again, why is it not knowing that this is a number? Because there's lots of dates there. If I do Control-1, I can change it to a number. It's stupid. It thinks it's a date. I'm sorry about that. Then there's other functions like I'll do stdev of Cisco. VAR would be variance, but kurtosis sounds like a fatal disease. He has 3 months to live, like on Grey's Anatomy. But I say kurtosis of Cisco. 0 is like a I think it's doing the dates again, which it shouldn't do. That's really terrible. But then minus 0.32, and then I'll do skewness, and then I'll leave this alone. So skewness of 0 means it's like normal. Skew of Cisco, sorry. Now, what is the pros and cons of using that data analysis tool back for the function? Well, cons is I'm getting those dates all the time. But basically, if you change the original data, these numbers would change, but those wouldn't. And if I don't have time to go through this, but if you make your data an Excel table with Control T, then when you add new data, the formulas update automatically. I mean, Control T in Excel, if I have time, I'll go back and show you that. Basically, when you make something in Excel table with Control T, when you add new data, your formulas and charts update automatically. That's a very important thing. And I mean, I'll probably make up a simple example to show you that. We can make this a table, but I want to make sure I get through the other stuff. Okay, so another thing statisticians love are box plots, right? So this is a classical set. How many people have used in class or seen in class the draft lottery data? Okay, so in 1969, there was, how many people watched This Is Us on TV? Anybody? Okay, Uncle Nicky on This Is Us was a character. So in 1969, to decide who went to Vietnam, they put in, it was based on your date of birth, in the year. So basically they put in January 1st capsule, January 2nd capsule, January 31st, February 1st, February 28th, put in December last. They shook it up, then they pick out the capsules. If your number was less than 180, you were likely to go to Vietnam. Okay, higher than 180, people lived and died because of this lottery, clearly. And it wasn't, it was statistically totally unfair. It's a great example. So here's the lottery numbers. Uncle Nicky on This Is Us was number 5. So he went to Vietnam and his brother Jack had to bail him out. And there's a lot of great episodes about that. Very good show in this last season. But basically, so the question is, how would you summarize this data? Well, you'd want to have, I don't have to explain to you guys what the box plot, but you'd want to know for January, February through December, what the box plot looked like. Now, Excel, I don't think does this the way I would want. You have to put categorical names in one column and then the data in another column. See, I would think I would want to have a column for January, a column for February, a column for December, but it doesn't do it that. So if you want to get the box plot, you have to sort. So here's the January draft lottery numbers, then the February. But if I want a box plot, it's fairly simple, whether I have a Macintosh or Windows. Oops, sorry. Got to go to the top. So you select the data. Let me get rid of this Zoom window. So if to select data, you would, sorry, Control Shift right arrow, down arrow. So now I have all the draft numbers 1 through 366 because it's February 29th. And actually, and so if I would do insert, got to move this thing again, I'm sorry. Insert, and then you see on this, hopefully this will show up here. You see where it says statistics chart. If you click there, oh, I should do a histogram. I didn't do a histogram. I'll do that in a minute. So I do insert. Do you see where it says box and whisker there? That'll give you a box plot. You can just move it around. I have one there already. But there is a box plot, and you can see, I don't have to explain box plots, but the X is the mean. You can see the last 3 months of the year, the mean drops down a lot. And so statisticians figured out that this lottery was unfair. Now, one thing you can do to change the way that looks is click on chart design. And then you could make it gray or black or whatever. I think gray looks pretty good. So basically you can, and again, I don't have to explain box plots, but you know how important that is. But you can see the mean went down. And so you could do a test with resampling, which I'll talk about a little bit later, to show if you look at the mean for the last 3 months as opposed to the mean for the first 9 months, there is zero chance the mean for the last 3 months would be that much lower. Now, why did this happen? Think about what they did. They put the January capsules in the February, then the December, and then they shook them up. So it's last in, first out. They didn't shake it up enough. The December capsule stayed on top. They came out first. Now, they wouldn't admit this to government because people lived in, I mean, obviously a terrible mistake. But the next year, they totally changed the mechanism. I don't want to waste the time talking. If you have a question after about the mechanism, they made it so it was random. If you look at the 1970 data, you can show there's no difference between the last 3 months of the year and the first 9 months. But I forgot to do a histogram, I'm sorry. So if I go back to the previous file descriptive, how do you do a histogram? So if I just select the Cisco column, And then I go insert where you found the box plot. See, there's the statistics icon. You see where it says histogram. This one's a Pareto chart, which I don't have time to do. But if I would do histogram here, there's a histogram. Now, the problem with that histogram is the bin ranges. Those are ugly bin ranges. I mean, you want nice round numbers for your bin ranges. So on the Macintosh, this is a little bit different. I think you have to right click on the bars. So on the Windows, though, if you right click on the bottom here, and I say format axis, I can say bin width 0.1, 10%. And I underflow, I can cut it off at, let's say, -20. Overflow, cut it off at +30. And by the way, if I added new data and made this an Excel table, the histogram automatically updates, which is really nice for the new data. So now I'd say overflow. Okay, I think I've got that right. Now I can do one more thing with this. Right, so that's a nice histogram. Now you might want to see the numbers on the histogram. If you click on the bars and go up to chart design, if you go to the gray, should show the numbers. Let's see. There it is. Right there, you can see the numbers. That's a beautiful histogram. I mean, the Cisco returns are pretty symmetric. You can see that. And if I added new data to the bottom, I just don't have time to do this. If I made it an Excel table, the histogram would update automatically, which is really nice. I'll try and go back and show you how you make something in Excel table in a minute, but I know I can see I'm already behind. Okay, so we did box plot. So do we call this a mosaic chart or a tree map chart? Yeah, I would too, but Excel calls it tree map. Okay, to me, it looks like the tiles, you know, that I failed art class with. So let me delete, I should delete these charts and move this one over. So how do I create a mosaic chart? Because that's a very important chart, I think. It's hierarchical data, which I cannot say very well. So what that means is you have sort of this example from the Microsoft site. You run a small bookstore. So column A is the category of book. Column B is a subcategory. I like children's books. So there's baby books, age 3 through 5, age 6 through 8, preteen and teens. So I like age 3 through 5. My favorite book is Tolstoy for Tots. I never made it through War and Peace. I tried 5 times. Okay, that's considered the greatest novel ever written. Okay, but basically, see, it's hierarchical data. Age 3 through 5 is a subset of children's books. These are the subsets in a different column of basically the types of children's books, and this is the number. So if I want to create a mosaic chart, thankfully, I want to call it that too. I hate the name tree map. So if I want to create a mosaic chart, I would just select the data, Control Shift right arrow, down arrow. I guess you have to, since there's blanks, you have to go to the bottom yourself. And then I would simply do insert, and then you can see, I've got to move this zoom window again. So if I do insert, this is where you find the tree map. Okay, hierarchy. There's a sunburst chart, but I don't like that, to be honest. But you can put this. So if I click there, I get a tree map chart. Now you have to make that bigger, and I think I don't have to explain to the people in this room what a tree map. The rectangles are proportional to the cells, and you can put the labels in there if you want. But I think that's really quite cool. So now the next thing I want to talk about, a problem people have who work is the data comes in, it doesn't look the way you want. So how many people have used Power Query? Okay, no, Power Query is really maybe the most important thing. Excel, and I don't know if it's on the Macintosh, I'm not sure it is. But basically, let me show you how Power Query works. So here I have a data set in this worksheet Power Query. And basically, so it's got NBA statistics. I'm big on sports, as John mentioned. So it's got like, these are Atlanta Hawks players, and these are 5 statistics. Then it's going to go down, Boston Celtic players, whatever. And basically, I made this an Excel table. If you click in here, you'll see the word table design. Probably should have started up here. That means Excel table. And to do Power Query, you need stuff to be an Excel table. But see, this data, what do I want to do with this data? I want to fill in the name Atlanta Hawks for all the Atlanta Hawks stats, right? And I mean, you laugh and say that's trivial. But so I taught a class at a power company in South Carolina, and one of the employees, she had to spend 2 hours a day doing that fill-in. She had to fill in Atlanta down to Boston, then Boston down to the next team. So Power Query automates a lot of tasks that people do to work with data. So I'm going to show you a simple example. I mean, and this is something definitely, well, in the business school, I don't know if they teach it, but I mean, it really should be taught. But Microsoft's done a really good job with this. So I want to do two things. I want to show you how to fill in those names of the teams. And then I want to show you, see, I've got 5 stats for every player, right? This is in a table form. Maybe you want each stat in a different row. That's a reasonable request. Shouldn't that be easy to do? Fill in all the names of the teams and put each stat in a different row? Well, with Power Query, it takes like 30 seconds. But without Power Query, that's not the world's easiest thing. But Power Query automates tasks like this. So like if you get messy data where it combines 2 or 3 columns in one column and you want to split it up, Power Query, and it's almost self-explanatory if you look at what it does. So let me see if I can do this one okay. So basically, you're inside here. Again, I don't know Macintosh, but you go Data tab, you go Data. Now, do you see on the left, Get Data? Again, I have 365, pretty much the newest version, but it should be in 2016. But you go Get Data. Now, you see there's a bunch of sources you could use for Power Query. So I want from other sources. I mean, any source that you'd want is here. So I go from other sources, and I go from sheet, because I'm taking the data from a worksheet. It's in a worksheet. So I go from sheet. So it should be doing something in a minute here. Well, that didn't do anything, did it? So let me go Data, because it should bring up the Power Query window. Get Data from other sources, from sheet. Okay, there it goes. I must have not clicked on it. So this is what pops up here. Okay, and now it's going to show my data. Okay, so if I go to transform, I can change this data around. So I want to fill down the team's names, right? So watch this. So I go to transform. I have to keep moving the zoom window to get out of my way. Okay, now I click on the team column because I want to fill down the team names, right? So I clicked on the team column, and then I go fill. Do you see up here fill under transform? I click fill down. Look at that. It filled down Atlanta until it came to the next team. You see that? That's so hard because there could be a different number of rows. You can't write a formula because it might be 20 rows. You could write a formula, but it's not. But see, it filled it down. That's really good. Now, what was the other thing I wanted to do? I wanted to unpivot. I wanted to basically flatten the table. See, this is a table I want to make into a flat file. So now what I do is I select these 5 columns. And then I'm going to do unpivot columns. Did I get that? Okay, unpivot columns should go there. Okay, look, it did it. It did it. It put the 5 rows for each player in a separate. Each statistic is in its own row. And I could set this to sort. And if I add new data, this would update automatically. If I added something to the bottom, again, I just don't think I have enough time. But if I added like a new player to the bottom, it would go in the right place over here. If I would say sort by team and then sort by player, it would put the new guy in the right place. Did that work? Any questions on that? I mean, in other words, basically, I selected those last 5 columns. I did unpivot columns, and basically, I filled in the team names, and basically, I flattened the table. And if I add new data, it knows to do that. So if I add a new player on a team like Boston, it'll go. If I say sort by team, it'll put him in the Boston place, in the right place. And so that's amazing with new. If you got new data every day and you had to do this stuff, how much time would you do? With this, you do it once, you never have to waste time to do it. And Power Query does lots of, there's a programming language that goes with it. I'm not an expert on it, called the M language. But we often get data in a form in business or any organization that doesn't look the way we want. How do we quickly fix it? I mean, Power Query is a great way to do that.
How do you check it?
Check it to see. I guess I would go back and do a pivot table, which we'll talk about later, and see basically if I got the right numbers. But I mean, I don't think I have to check Power Query. I mean, on this, I know it's going to do it right, but I could check it. I mean, I could do a calculation. So what if I say, oh, what do you do with this? You do close and load. File, close and load. So then you have the original data and you have transformed it, then I check. Okay, but if I would, I mean, I didn't sort it, but let me add a new one to the bottom. Let me do that. So if I go the Power Query worksheet, I'll go to the bottom. I always wanted to be in the NBA, so I'll put myself in. Wayne. I wanted to be a point guard, and I don't like the Celtics. I'll say Houston Rockets. Okay, they're terrible. Okay, they're worse. Who's worse, the Rockets or the Texans? We could have a poll. Okay, it's like a tie, isn't it? Okay, it's pretty close. Yeah, I mean, they're so, and Deshaun wants them, but they couldn't even trade him. Okay, so if I'm a good player, of course, so I'm gonna set NBA records. Okay, so now if I go back to where that table was and I right-click refresh, it's gonna throw me in there. I didn't do sort, so it'll probably throw me on the bottom. But if I click refresh, I should be there on the bottom. See, there I am. It put me in, so if I had new data, it's gonna put me in. And if I had done sort in the query, it would have put me in under Houston. And would have put me last alphabetically with Wayne. See, just think about it, how you would do this if you didn't have this tool. I mean, anybody would want to do what I just did with this data. At least you'd want to fill in the team names. I mean, how could you not want to do that? But data comes in all the time to companies where they have the blanks. And you got to fill down. Accounting firms get that all the time. So Power Query, I mean, my new Excel book will have a good chapter on Power Query. Okay, trend curve. So a nice capability in Excel is you give it two variables. You want to see what's the best fitting curve to that point. So Excel lets you easily fit a bunch of curves. So I have units produced and monthly cost, classic example in cost accounting. You select the data and do a scatter plot. So under insert, you do scatter plot right here. Just get the dots. So this looks like a straight line because I made it up to look like a straight line, okay? So now, I mean, when I ask people, what do you do first to figure out the relationship between data, two columns, they'll say, run a regression. Well, I say you should look and see if it's a straight line first. It may not be a straight line, but Excel can fit a lot of curves. And I know ways to fit any curve in Excel using the solver. I don't have time to talk about that today. But you can fit highly nonlinear curves by using the Excel solver, the GRG multi-story revolutionary. I can fit any curve very well. I mean, like logistic curve. I mean, which Excel should build in, but they don't. But basically, so I want to find the best fitting straight line. I basically right click, add trend line. Now, when I see add trend line, you guys know what all these things are. So I can fit exponential curve, linear curve, y equals a plus b log x, fit a polynomial up to degree 6. That'll overfit for sure. Fit a power curve, y equal ax to the b. Fit a 4-quarter or 12 period moving average. Now this is gonna, I'm not sure I'll be able to find. What I want to do is go to the bottom here. Oh yeah, display equation in R squared. See, it's covering that. For some reason, that's covering it up. I don't know why, because I can't see that. But display equation, I think we probably should have changed the resolution on this. Display equation in R squared. But see now, I have the least squares line and I have the R squared. You can do that with functions. There's a slope function, an intercept function, an R squared function. Again, I don't have time to do a lot of stuff here. But basically, let's go from trend curve. I think I'll pass, see if I have time to come back. Show you how to do resampling in Excel. I don't know if I'll have time. Okay, airline, go to airline miles. Now, I don't think the Macintosh has this, but there is a great forecasting tool built into Excel called the forecast sheet. So if I go data, let me just show it to you, forecast sheet. If I select dates and I select numbers, it does winner's exponential smoothing for trend and seasonality, a pretty sophisticated version to make forecasts. So for example, if I would select these two columns here, well, let me start. Well, we'll just to save a little time here. Let's use 2001 through 2005 to predict 2006 through 2007. So in other words, if I want to use 5 years of data, and you can figure out what's the best length of time to use in the forecast. So I want to use that to forecast what's coming next. So if I select dates and I select whatever I want to do here, and then I'm going to go data forecast sheet. The Macintosh doesn't have it. So we tried this in class last week in my class. Okay, so you see this here. This is the actual seasonal airline data in the summer peaks, although with COVID, who knows. Okay, but basically, this is the forecast it comes up with. So if I would click OK, in a separate worksheet, it puts my forecast. So I would click, I'll say end date 2007, that's fine. I don't care. So I click create. Now, if you go to, it creates a new worksheet here for airline forecasts. And again, I'm short of time, but basically, if you look at this, go down right here. This is the forecast. And there's a function for that. Sorry, the function would be here. Forecast.ets, you give it the data you want to use to make the forecast, what date you want to forecast for, don't worry about the last arguments. And it will do like the 5-year exponential smoothing forecast. And you could see, like you could do for every month in that airline miles, you could do the forecast for the current month, and you could see how accurate it is using everything you knew up to that point in time. It's really simple to use. And basically then it does confidence intervals on the forecast. So if I would do formula text here just to show you, I actually like using the formulas better. But there is your forecast. And then if I copy that across, there's a lower, guess that didn't copy across, but this is your lower part of your 95% confidence interval. And then there's the upper part. So you can do quick forecasts that are pretty good. And when am I supposed to stop, John? 10 to 5? Okay. I want to get to the pivot tables. Let me show you the stock history function, which just depends on what version of Excel you have. You can pull stock prices. So we probably know Southwest Airlines where we live here. Okay, so LUV is the ticker symbol. So if you have a fairly new version of 365, and I don't know how many you have, but if you type stock history and you type ticker symbol, here's my start date. And my end date, I used a function in Excel called today. So I'll show you that formula in a minute. But that says, give me information on Southwest Airlines, start date here through today. So this would update automatically. And then the interval, I want daily. And then no header is fine, 0. And if I put 0 and 1, I get the date and I get the closing. Doesn't count for dividends, I don't think. But that'll give me Southwest Airlines prices if I'm connected to the internet. Just give it a minute. There you go. That's pretty amazing. Now, the way I made the end date be today in Excel, because then it will update automatically. See, tomorrow, open up, if you save this, tomorrow that'll say November 9th, and it will add November 9th Southwest Airlines price. And so you can do this for currencies, you can do it for crypto, for Bitcoin, you can do it for some commodities. But this makes it easy if you're teaching finance to get data that would be really useful in class. The students can get their own data for portfolio optimizations and stuff like that. Except John and I found out if you put 1,000 of these in one workbook, it doesn't work. It crashes. It can't pull that many out. But now regression, we all like to do regressions. So there's a thing in Office 365, new data types. So I gave this to my class here. And just think about how hard it would be to get, I'll describe the data I got, and how would we get this data without this new data types I'm going to show you. So then I'll go to pivot tables. So basically, I downloaded the 100 or 110 largest cities and population in the US from Wikipedia. And then I want to predict the crime rates. So I need the crime rates per 1,000 people. Houston is the fourth. Houston will eventually pass Chicago in population. I think that's sure. And then I downloaded the median income, the Gini index, a measure of inequality, the percentage of blacks, percentage of Asians, biracial percentage, and the percentage of Native Americans. Now, would you guys be able to get this data in like 30 seconds? Probably not. So they have these new data types. So let me just illustrate the new data types. You may not have the most recent version, but basically what you do with the new data type, but this, when I show you these new data, new data types, they potentially give our students, even K through 12, ways to get data to do lots of analysis, because they have the new data types that I have. I think I have the most recent. I can get, where's automatic? I should go to automatic. Yeah, I guess so. Well, let's just do New York City. I'll select that as a city type. So if I go here, you should have the city type, I hope. It depends on your version of Excel. But if I go New York City and I go data and I go city, you can do universities. You could do research on every university in the country. It gives you every, I'll do one university. I'll do Rice, why not? Okay, but if I do city there, New York City, see, now it knows it's a city. You see that icon? Now if I click on that, look what I can pull. So let's pull the Gini index, measure of inequality. You'll see where I got that 0.549, and these refresh actually. Now L8, okay, it's messing up on what I see on the screen here. So I would go, I would say L1, and then if I click on Gini index, there we go. Don't want the plus 09. But that's the formula. You refer to the data type that you created, and then you pick the property you want. So let me just see if I can do Rice University really quick. But I'll just show you the type of information that's available on every university in the country. So if I select copy that and I go data university, automatic would probably work. These come from Mathematica. See there, you see the cap and gown. So if I click there, look at all I could get. I'm not even scratching the surface. But see, if I had a list of every university in the country, I could get all this stuff in 30 seconds. And then I could do all sorts of whatever I think I should do with that. I mean, how would I get this data in like under 5 minutes? I mean, I don't think there's a way. So like if your 75th percentile on the math SAT is 800. That means a quarter of your freshman class has 800, I guess, on the SAT. That's pretty good. Now, if you wanted to run a regression, I'll just show you how you do it because we're just running out of time and I got to get to pivot tables. So if you wanted to run a regression, you go data, data analysis, and you go regression. And so my Y range would be column C, my X range would be column D through I, and then I'd have to figure out the low, high p-values, take them out. I don't have time to do that. But basically, the interesting thing I found when I ran this regression, once you know the inequality, the income didn't matter, the median income. Inequality is a huge driver of crime, and that makes sense. I think other people have found that. And then there are components based on race that do contribute to crime. There's a lot of people who run analyses to figure out what predicts crime rate in cities. Like there's actually a theory, there's a southern tendency to violence. I didn't run that. But if you put in a dummy variable for every southern city, would that be significant, showing a higher crime rate in the South? People used to think that. I don't know what the prevailing thing is on that, but that's interesting. But I mean, I'm running out of time, but I got to do the pivot tables. Okay, so pivot tables are the most, and this won't take long, that part. And then, by the way, all the statistical tables, you know, you've got binomial tables. The worst thing I think I ever had to teach was using binomial tables. They only went to p equals 0 to 0.5. So there was a 55% chance of success. I had to tell them, make it 0.45 and reverse success and failure. That's like the stupidest thing I ever taught them about that. But there's a function in Excel, binomial disrange, to do binomial probability. So I'm going to try and fit that in if I can do the pivot tables quickly. But pivot tables let you slice and dice data any way you want. So let me give you 2 quick examples because these will be probably per minute the best thing I can do. So I gave this question to my students. I made up data on eye color and hair color. I said, how are they related? So pivot tables let you slice and dice data. So what do you want to know? For every eye color, what's the chance you have each hair color? You want to know a percentage of the people that would have each of those properties. So this is so simple. So you just put your, you don't even have to select the data. You go inside the data. Well, let me get rid of this here because I'm going to put it back. And we want a chart and we want a thing here. So I just go anywhere inside the data, it will recognize your data. You do insert and then you do pivot table. So you should check, did it get your data? And new worksheet, and then where do I want to put the pivot table? Existing worksheet on the right. So I'll say right there. Okay, now comes the field list. And so like, I think every person who graduates from a college should know how to set up a pivot table. I'm really strong on that. I'd love to make a presentation. So basically what I want to do is basically put eye color. I don't care what goes down. Maybe I need 2 pivot tables, but I don't have time. So maybe I'll put eye color going down. So I will see a list of eye colors. And then I'll put hair color going across. And I just want to count how many people in each group and then do a percentage breakdown. So it doesn't matter if I'm counting what I put there. So now what I've got, that's in my data, that's the breakdown of blue eye. So I hope it's not blue hair. Blue-eyed people have blonde hair. You can see blue-eyed people almost always have blonde hair or brown hair. Now I want to see a percentage breakdown. How do I do that? So if you don't know what to do in a pivot table, you right click. So you do right click, show values as percentage of row. I'll do value field settings if you have a Macintosh. Value field settings, show values as, and I say here a percentage of row. And now I want a chart. So now I would just go in there, pivot table, analyze, give me a chart. That probably took 1 minute if I did it. And now I can see what's going on. I can see the blue-eyed people, they're going to be concentrated on blonde hair, brown hair, the hazel. I didn't even know what hazel eyes were, to be honest. Hazel eyes are going to be basically almost everybody has brown hair. I didn't know that. And then I could flip this around and do another pivot table and chart where I basically break down for basically each hair color, what's their eye color. Now let me do one more pivot table here and see. I would like to show you something from the vaccine trials, an amazing, I don't know if you knew, 40,000 people were in the Pfizer vaccine trials. How many cases did they need to see before they could conclude there was a 50% effectiveness? I want to quickly show you that. But let me show you slicers and timelines and pivot tables. These are amazing. So I'm going to just get rid of this stuff over here. So here I made up sales at our local GM dealer of what brand they sold, Chevy, Buicks, or Cadillacs. And I have the date they sold it, and I have the sales. Now, what I would like to do is set up a pivot table. You could pick any subset of cars and see what's going on, any subset of dates and see what's going on. So somebody who's like really knows nothing could click on little buttons called slicers and timelines to filter the pivot table. This is like most people who use pivot tables don't know this. But let's do a quick look. So I just select the data here, get rid of this 44,197. But you go in here, you go insert pivot table. Oops, sorry, I have to go in here, insert pivot table. I need the upper limit from table range is fine. So it's got my data, it knows that. Existing worksheet, just pick an upper left-hand corner. Hopefully that's enough room for it. If I go to column G. I mean, I've got the longest chapter of my book is 70 pages on pivot tables. There's a lot to know. Can't do that in now. Okay, so what I want to know is for every date, what did we sell? So I would drag date to the row. I would drag the brands to the column. Now it says months, don't worry. Brands to the column, and I want total sales. You can change sum to average or whatever. So now what I want to do is I want to see individual days, right? So I right click on group. Right click on group and I have the dates. So now I know every day what we sold of Buicks, Cadillacs, and Chevys. Now I want to have a way to filter this. So one pivot table is really thousands of pivot tables. So in other words, I can pick subsets of, how many ways can I pick a subset of 3 cars? 7, I think, 2 to the third minus 1. So I could show any combination of these subset of these cars with these slices. So I'm going to put in a slice. Let me get rid of this thing here because I want to put it back in. But basically, when I click on a subset of cars, that's what will show in the table in the chart. So if I want to pop this thing out here, I can just right-click cut to get rid of it. And right-click cut to get rid of this. I'll put it back in. It'll take 2 seconds. So now if I go here, go inside the table, go Insert tab. Go to Insert tab, you'll see Slicer or Timeline. So let's do Slicer. Slicer. I want to do that. In other words, how do I want to slice the data on the brand? So I click brand. Now I want to do a timeline, pick a subset of dates. I go in here, do insert, and I would do timeline. And there has to be an actual date, but there is. So now what I can do is I can pick any, see that's covering up the table, 1 second. So now I can pick any subset of cars, like I could say Buick, hold down Control key, and Chevy. So now I see Buick and Chevy. I can pick any subset of months here. I think it's early in 2021. I could pick February through March. And if I made a chart, because I'm running out of time. So that shows Buick and Chevy for any set of dates I want. I could show Buick and Cadillac or just Cadillac, and the chart would update automatically. See, man, that took me 2 minutes. So the slicers and timelines, they create hundreds, if not thousands of tables. Basically, I did, the best example I did with this was I had daily COVID cases in every country in the world. So I used a slicer to pick the countries of the world that you wanted to chart, and I used a timeline to come up with the dates you wanted to chart. So I could overlay like India COVID cases have dropped amazingly. They're not really vaccinated. Why? I have no idea. Okay. And then basically I could draw, like you could see the US older waves, unfortunately, and you could see United Kingdom, but there's the world in data has the daily COVID cases. And so basically you do a pivot table with slicers and timelines. Then the students can show any set. We've all seen those curves. We can show any set of countries. We can show any set of dates, and we can show basically overlay the first chart. I'll be done in under that. Okay, I mean, 5 o'clock. Can I go 1 more minute on one more thing? Okay, for my technical difficulties, I justify 1 more minute. Okay, so blank, just go to a blank worksheet. I want to show you, I have it here. I added this on the plane, actually. Just go to a blank worksheet. I want to show you something about the COVID vaccine trials. So, I mean, I don't know what the best source, there's lots of misinformation in the world. We all know that. But there's a site called Stat News. I think they're pretty reputable. So like if I want to find something out about COVID, I'll Google Stat News. Okay, like Ivex, the horse medicine. I don't know how to say it. So I mean, like it hasn't been proven effective, but basically there's a meta-analysis of the horse medicine that said it was effective. But then if you dig deeper, there was one trial in the Middle East that was totally fake, and that turns the meta-analysis in favor of the horse medicine. Okay. And so maybe we know we need randomized controlled trials, and they're working on, I think Oxford's working on. I mean, maybe the horse medicine works. There's one theory that in India cut the cases. I was told that by one of my students. I have no idea. But basically, there were 40,000 people in the vaccine trials. So like, how many cases did Pfizer need to see to prove 50% effective? 32 cases would have been enough. And so I wanted to prove this to myself. They said if you had 32 cases of COVID, half the people took the placebo, half the people took the vaccine. And only 6 people in the vaccine group got COVID, and 26 of those 32 cases were in the placebo group. That would prove to you at 95% chance that the vaccine was 50% effective. This is a great puzzle to give to your students. Okay, so now if it's 50% effective, so you make the null hypothesis. Probability of a COVID case in the trial is the vaccine group would be 1/3. That's the tricky part. Because if it's 50% effective, then you should have 1 case in the vaccine group for every 2 cases in the placebo. So that would mean 1/3 of the cases should be in the vaccine group. And so then what's the chance that you would see if it broke out 6 out of 30? I couldn't believe 32 cases was enough to perhaps show that the vaccine was 90. You're 95% sure it's 50% effective. But this is the hypothesis you want to test. So guess what? If you want to figure out the chance if you have 32 trials in a binomial, there's a function for this, binom disrange. So if you had 32 trials in a binomial and you had a 1/3 chance that each of them is a sick person, what's the chance you would see between 0 and 6? Now that beats teaching out of the stupid binomial tables any way you slice it. But 5%. So, I mean, the stat news thing was exactly right because that's our standard of proof. In other words, if you had 32 cases of COVID and 6 equal number of people took the vaccine and the placebo and only 6 were in the vaccine group, what's the chance that it was 50% effective, which was the standard to prove a vaccine? It basically would mean 1/3 of the cases would be in the vaccine group. So if there were 1/3 in the vaccine group, what's the chance you would see 6 or less? It's only 5%. So that would be proof at the 95% level that basically it was 50% effective. So 32 cases. I think they stopped the trial when they had 32 cases. That was that. So I better stop it. Any quick questions? I'm sorry that so quick and I had trouble with it. But basically, if you have questions like, can Excel do this or Excel do that? But I mean, it can do a lot of things. Oh, let me just show you how to do an Excel table because that's very important. So like if we go to a blank worksheet, just type in price, units, and revenue. What do I mean by Excel table? So like if I say $5, 6 units, $6, 7 units, and then revenue is price times units. Now I'm going to make this a table. How do I do that? I select the data in the headers and I do Control T. For that Power Query, you have to do. So again, if you make something a table, you'll see in a minute, basically when you add new data, things update automatically. So basically if I click this here, make it a table. Now, basically if I add a new row, watch what happens. I'll just say 7, 8. It copies the formula down automatically. And if I want to add up the revenue, equals sum revenue. Add a new row. See, that means add up the revenue column of the table. So I could say 3, 4. It added the new row revenue. That's what I mean that a table updates automatically with new data. So in that first worksheet, if you made the data table stock price returns, if you added new data, the histogram and the functions would update, but not the analysis toolpath. I think that's all I find for. But again, if you have any questions, again, I'll put up my email and my phone number there. I'm glad to answer questions on this stuff. But I think I was discussing with some of the stat faculty, if you're teaching people who aren't stat majors and you want to get them into doing stuff in data analysis, Excel is a really good vehicle. I mean, you're teaching people who are going to be professional statisticians, it's a bad vehicle. But I mean, there's just lots, all these things are like, I'm teaching honor students who are some freshmen, some seniors, some never had a stat course in their life, and they all understand most of the stuff we're doing. I mean, I can teach them how to do resampling. I ran out of time to do that. Resampling statistics tests, like you should try and do on the draft data, resampling to show the last 3 months. What's the chance the last 3 months had the same, you get that much big a difference in the means for the last 3 months and the first 9 months? The answer is 0. They're like 5 decimal points. That was totally an unfair lottery. People lived and died because of those numbers in the lottery. And the next year, what they did, by the way, they used random numbers to figure out the order they put the capsules in the bowl. And then when they took them out based on random numbers. Like if you took out January 10th first, the number that January 10th got was based on another random number. And then that was totally random. They knew they made a mistake. The day after the lottery, the New York Times was full of articles by statisticians saying this was screwed up. I mean, it's really, you can't have a better example, I think, of box plots than that. Well, I'm sorry that I had trouble with the technology, but hopefully that gives you an idea. The new data types in the Power Query are things that you really should invest. Like I can get data on Adele's songs, Linda Ronstadt's songs. I can get data on diseases like a histogram of the age distribution of diabetes and stuff like that. Maybe it has COVID now. I didn't even look up COVID, but the pivot tables are the most commonly used tool in the world to summarize data. You can't do a hypothesis test, but you can really sort of add to students' understanding of data
I mean, just knowing how to lay out the pivot table to answer the question at hand is a skill that even smart kids, because the Honors College in Indiana, the average SAT is over 1,400. And they still have trouble with that I problem. I gave that on the test. They should have known, as long as their answer matched their table, I give you credit. But like, they didn't know to do percentage of row or percentage of column, things like that. But I mean, pivot, I mean, I can't say enough about the importance of pivot tables. And that Power Query is going to change the workplace, because I don't know how many analysts waste their time doing stuff like what I showed you. Fill down the column, take the stuff in rows and put it in columns. And then when I add new data, make it update automatically. And then they have Power, oh, by the way, they have more than 1 million rows. They have Power Pivot, which can do pivot tables on hundreds of millions of rows. So basically, if you import the data from Access, you can do pivot tables on hundreds of millions of rows. And so basically, like Medicare data or basically Walmart data and stuff like that. Well, I guess that's all the time we have.
Let's thank our speaker.
Oh, thanks.